Shadows on the horizon. The silent armada fueling a fractured world. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Nunny Fight C4. Don't forget to subscribe. Imagine the vast, churning expanse of the Mediterranean Sea, where colossal vessels slice through the waves like leviathans of steel and salt. These are not mere ships. They are the arteries of global commerce, pulsing with the lifeblood of trade, fruits, chemicals, machinery, that sustain economies from New York to Shanghai. At the helm of this armada stands the Mediterranean Shipping Company, MSC, the undisputed titan of the seas, commanding over 20% of the world's container traffic. But beneath this facade of efficiency lies a darker current, a covert lifeline sustaining the very outposts of conflict that the world has long condemned as illegal. For years, MSC has ferried goods to and from the forbidden frontiers of Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank and Syria's Golan Heights, enlisting the unwitting, or perhaps complicit, aid of European port operators to launder this illicit cargo into the heart of the West. This is no abstract scandal whispered in diplomatic corridors. It is a betrayal etched in the dust-choked streets of Hebron and the olive groves of Qalqilia. Picture the Palestinian farmer in the West Bank, his ancestral lands bulldozed under the shadow of concrete walls, watching as trucks rumble past, laden with settlement-produced dates and stone that will soon grace European supermarkets. Each container MSC loads in Haifa or Ashdod, stamped with zip codes like 90662 Kiryat Arba, or 20,100 Katzrin in the Golan, is a dagger thrust deeper into the dream of peace. An Al Jazeera investigation, drawing from over 1,000 commercial shipping manifests between January and November 2025, unmasks the scale. At least 957 shipments to the United States alone, with over half routed through European hubs like Ravenna, Italy, and Valencia, Spain. These ports, bastions of EU prosperity, have become unwitting accomplices, their cranes hoisting crates that bear the fruits of occupation, literally in the case of settlement-grown produce exported as made in Israel. The emotional toll is a wound that festers across generations. For the 3 million Palestinians in the West Bank, these shipments are not statistics. They are the echo of dispossession. Families torn from their homes, children schooled under military checkpoints, elders burying kin felled by settler violence, all subsidized by a trade that evades scrutiny. In the Golan Heights, Druze communities, uprooted since 1967, see their water diverted and lands seized, only for MSC's holds to swell with basalt stone and wine from vineyards planted on stolen soil. This is the human cost, a slow erosion of dignity where international law, enshrined in UN Resolution 2334 and the Geneva Conventions, declares these settlements war crimes, yet corporations like MSC shrug, claiming mere compliance with global frameworks. Their tepid response to the probe? A boilerplate assurance of respect for regulations, devoid of remorse or reform. It is a moral abdication that leaves the vulnerable to weep in the ruins, their cries drowned by the roar of diesel engines. The perils unleashed, a cascade of global reckoning. This covert commerce is no victimless enterprise. It ignites a chain of dangers that threaten to engulf the world in flames. Politically, it entrenches the occupation, pouring economic oxygen into settlements that house over 700,000 Israelis, fueling expansion that devours Palestinian territory at a rate of 20,000 dunams annually. By normalizing trade, $200 million in settlement exports to the EU in 2024 alone, it undermines the two-state solution, provoking despair that manifests in cycles of violence. Rocket fire from Gaza, settler pogroms in the West Bank, and a death toll surpassing 40,000 since October 2023. Emotionally, it breeds a profound sense of injustice, radicalizing youth on both sides and eroding trust in institutions from the UN to the EU, where hypocrisy festers like an open sore. Economically, the risks ripple outward. Consumers in the US and Europe unwittingly fund this illegality, subsidizing products that undercut Palestinian farmers and distort markets. Settlement dates flood shelves at half the price, bankrupting local growers. Legally, companies like MSC expose themselves to boycotts and lawsuits under frameworks like the EU's anti-settlement trade guidelines, while ports risk fines for failing due diligence. Geopolitically, it strains alliances. The US, despite acknowledging settlements' illegality, imports freely, inviting accusations of double standards that embolden authoritarian regimes elsewhere to flout borders, from Crimea to Xinjiang. And in a world teetering on climate catastrophe, these fossil fuel-guzzling routes amplify emissions, with each transatlantic voyage belching 1,000 tons of CO2, compounding the environmental plunder of occupied lands where aquifers run dry to irrigate export crops. Worst of all, this opacity sows seeds of escalation. As BDS, boycott, divestment, sanctions, campaigns swell, echoing the anti-apartheid triumphs of old, protests at ports could paralyze trade, spiking global shipping costs by 10 to 15% and triggering shortages from avocados to auto parts. In the powder keg of the Middle East, one intercepted shipment could spark reprisals, drawing superpowers into proxy wars that dwarf Ukraine's shadow. Forging the path forward, solutions born of resolve. Yet from this abyss rises a clarion call for redemption, not vengeance but vigilant justice. Solutions must be swift, multifaceted, and unyielding, starting with corporate accountability. MSC and its ilk must institute mandatory origin audits, publishing manifests in real time via blockchain for transparency, as piloted by Maersk in its post-probe pivot to sever settlement ties. Advocacy groups like Who Profits and the Palestinian Youth Movement demand settlement-free certifications, empowering consumers to shun complicit brands through apps that scan barcodes for occupation taint. Ports, too, bear the onus. AI-driven customs scanners could flag suspect zip codes, with violators facing docking bans. Broader remedies lie in economic redirection. Redirect trade flows to Palestinian enterprises.
I want you to share this video.
Invest $1 billion in co-ops for olive oil and tech exports, as urged by UNCTAD, to build resilience and jobs, turning victims into victors. Internationally, enforce labeling laws rigorously. The EU's 2023 settlement blacklist must evolve into a full embargo, mirroring Norway's model, while the US amends its trade promotion authority to bar settlement goods outright. A mandate for the world: governments, act now or perish in infamy. World governments, the hour of decision has struck. Your inertia is complicity, your action the salve for a bleeding world. The UN Security Council must convene an emergency session to blacklist shipping firms abetting illegality, imposing asset freezes and travel bans on executives, as done against Russian oligarchs. The EU Parliament, with its 450,000 signature petition invoking the Human Rights Clause, should suspend Israel's trade privileges until settlements halt, a decisive stroke that could have occupation funding overnight. The US Congress passed the No Settlement Subsidies Act, docking federal contracts from any firm touching these frontiers, and fund $500 million in Palestinian infrastructure to counterbalance. To the global south, nations like South Africa, who felled apartheid, lead by example, harbor no tainted vessels and rally the WTO for a clean trade accord mandating ethical sourcing. And to Israel, heed the winds of change, dismantle these outposts as even allies whisper, to reclaim moral high ground and forge lasting peace. This is our crossroads. Let MSC's ships become harbingers of hope, not heralds of hate. The sea, that ancient witness to empire's rise and fall, demands we choose, perpetuate the poison or pilot toward justice. The choice is yours, leaders of the world. Act decisively, or history will judge you as the architects of enduring sorrow. The waves crash on, will you turn the tide? Thank you for watching.